Life can be messy,
Life can be unpredictable,
but a whole lot of love.
and a little wine makes it all work.
This is Love and Jesus Juice. Hey, Paula,
Hey, Kirby.
what are we drinking on this nice, breezy fall, but not fall night?
I know, right? You have to go, oh, wait, it's August in Indiana.
Yes.
And we have our windows open.
And there's a breeze.
It's
There's
fabulous.
no humidity.
Yeah.
The end times are coming.
Yeah, exactly. We are actually sharing another wine, and they're actually sponsoring this episode. First Miracle Winery.
Yes.
We love them.
that was so
YOLO is
pleasant.
the name of this. You only live
YOLO.
once. Yeah, it's a white wine, very Chardonnay-like, though none of their wines tell us exactly what they are.
Yeah. We would have had to make extensive notes when we were.
Yeah, and we tried so many. Well, that just wasn't even an option. But this wine, I remember loving.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's
Yeah,
take it. Let's
let's do it.
refresh our memory.
That is just a really, really good Chardonnay-like. Who knows what grapes,
Right.
because they're so amazing at finding all the different ones. And
It's crisp and it's clean. There's not a lot of butter. There's not a lot of extra.
no oak.
taste.
There's not that. A lot of Chardonnays are very oaky,
Yeah,
which I don't always love.
Yeah, if they don't
and-
use an oak barrel, they put oak chips in there.
Yeah. And so this, if I had to pick one Chardonnay to drink, but it's probably not Chardonnay, this one would be it.
And that's what's so unique about this winery, though, is their wines typically don't scream the grape that you think it's going to scream.
Which is very unusual. And the fact, and we shared this before when we first talked about them, they go all over the world to find the grapes that they want to use. And that just doesn't happen for a lot of wineries in the US. Either they grow them or they don't.
Right.
But they don't go in all different places all over
Right,
the
they
world.
don't
to
seem
find
to
them.
source their juice. They either buy the juice from a mass market, kind of an overflow from
Yeah.
the California wineries, because that's obviously affordable and easy to do, or they're the big wineries and they pride themselves that they grow all of their own grapes.
Right.
Which isn't,
None of
neither
those are
one
wrong.
of those are the wrong thing, but this is a unique one where he's tasting the juice before he buys it and brings it in with the goal of almost like an artist and combining all of those things into a new experience.
Yeah, and which is why we were so in love with this winery, and why I really don't care where you live. I think you should make a trip to First Miracle Winery.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, let's get started tonight. Let's just jump right into
Okay.
because now we're back from Pigeon Forge.
Yes.
Last week we did our poolside podcast,
Yeah, which was really fun.
which was really fun. But we're going to revisit Born to Fly 360.
Okay.
With our last core discipline, our last
Right.
core principle, which is discipline.
Yes, exactly. So we've done consistency,
Yes.
and then we did
Focus.
focus, and so now we're going to do discipline.
Which these three things together make up kind of the engine that drives our Born to Fly 360 program that we'll be talking about with the 6 life regions as we go further on. So let's review. If I were to ask you, what does consistency mean? What would you tell me?
It is the do it over and over and over and over again.
The repetition.
The repetition of it is the as soon as I hear the word consistency, it to me means that I can do the same thing over and over again.
And a lot of people, though, will think discipline and consistency are the same thing.
Yeah, and they don't even connect. That's not true. They absolutely connect in my mind, but it doesn't sound like the same thing to me. But I know that is a struggle that a lot of people have. So how would you explain discipline?
So I consider consistency a muscle.
Yeah.
It removes the emotion from the behavior. You're just doing it by habit. You're doing it by
Rote.
Rote. Yes. The
Right.
alarm goes off, you get out of bed.
Yeah.
It's that. The discipline, it trains the muscle that is consistency.
Yeah.
So every uncomfortable situation starts with emotion.
Right. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we always talk about when emotion is high, logic is low. And so, there's got to be a process there,
And
right?
if you ever tried to wake a 4-year-old up, you know that waking up is an emotional experience.
Right. Exactly.
And so discipline trains us to take that, I don't want to get out of bed, just 5 more minutes out of the scenario to the point where then it doesn't become such a problem.
Right.
That's just a very base example of it.
Right. Because when that emotion is high, you can tell yourself, but it's time to get out of bed. I need to get out of bed to be able to get ready. The logic doesn't connect though.
No.
It doesn't connect because you don't want to.
You don't want to.
Yeah, and
Most
that's-
people don't want to.
yeah.
There are some weird people out there that get up really
Right.
early and have no problem.
And
getting up.
they love it, but that's
they love
not the norm.
So ironically enough, I was listening to another podcast today.
Okay.
It's called the Jocko Podcast by Jocko Willink.
Okay.
And his crew. And just a little background on it. He's the author, one of the authors of the book Extreme Ownership, which you have upstairs on your reading list. And I read earlier.
I know I have not gotten to read it yet, but I know the name.
But if I could paint a picture of you, this is what I see in my head when I'm listening to him talk. We like the CBS show SEAL Team.
Yes.
And so the main character in there, David Boreanaz, I should actually know
Probably, but he's been in several
He's been in
shows,
several
Bones,
things, Bones
yeah.
and some other things. But when I'm listening to this podcast,
That's who you're thinking
That's who
of?
I'm thinking of.
I love it.
He
Yeah.
was he was a Navy SEAL, ran teams, head dude.
So on top of him doing the job that this guy does in the show,
Right.
Well, I mean, it's yes,
But
right.
he's not a Navy SEAL now. He's retired, but that's what he did.
Okay.
And in Fallujah, he was one of the heads of the SEAL teams there,
I just
doing all
can't
of that
even-
stuff.
Even watching SEALs, which is not what we're talking about tonight, that just boggles my mind.
But Extreme Ownership takes principles of SEAL team leadership and takes it out and says, how do you apply it to your business world?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, that's why I listen to his podcast. These
Okay.
podcast episodes are like 2 hours long. They are
Oh,
heavy
marathons.
investments. But they're fascinating if you like history, if you like military strategy or whatever, because that's kind of the theme behind it.
Okay,
is
so it's just his name is the name of the podcast?
Jocko Podcast.
Okay,
It's called
I'm
the
going to have to
Jocko
look it up because I'm going to
Podcast,
be in the
yes.
car tomorrow, so I'm
Yeah,
going
and
to
it's a
totally check it
long
out.
one. And there's been 250 of them. So
Perfect.
Oh, by the way, this is our 50th podcast.
Really?
Yes, this is our 50th podcast.
Oh my
We
gosh.
should be celebrating and-
We should. Let's have a drink of wine.
Okay, let's take a drink. We'll
Okay.
cheers. to
Yeah,
that.
cheers. Okay.
Okay, I digress.
Okay, back to Jocko.
But what I love is when kind of the universe places things. Tonight's our topic is discipline. I've written the chapter of the book on discipline. We've been talking about it a lot, but today's that podcast actually gave me some more pieces to talk about tonight.
Okay, great.
And one of the first ones that he starts off with in this podcast is he was reviewing field manuals, combat lessons from World War II.
Okay.
And one of the first ones was when the battle starts, it's human nature to do nothing.
When the battle starts, it's human nature to do nothing. Okay, explain that.
So it doesn't matter how brave you are, how much strategy and tactical skills you have, how prepped you are for your business. When the battle breaks out, human nature is going to freeze people.
Interesting.
It's actually intrinsically wired for us to do nothing.
So that fight, flight, or freeze,
Yeah.
is that accurate
Yeah,
still?
yeah, it
Okay.
is. But it's that initial moment because we don't know what to do, and until we know what to do, we do nothing.
Okay, so we don't, unless it's consistent,
Right.
which
Unless
is
you-
not going to be consistent.
Exactly.
Okay,
Unless it's
got it.
predictable and you know it's coming and
Got it,
whatnot.
okay.
But you take the average grunt, the average soldier who may have been drilled, he's marched, he's done all this other stuff. When the first shell lands, the tendency is to do nothing.
Got it.
And discipline is what happens to allow people to go, okay, now that I know it's starting, and move from nothing to something, to create motion out of inactivity.
Nothing. Yeah, okay.
And that was kind of the top topic of was the law of inertia when it comes to the battlefield.
Interesting.
It's a good leader then is the one that starts the activities and gets things moving. It takes leadership to trigger the people who are frozen to get moving
Because they have more experience.
because they have more experience. They've been through it before. And so they can't be the ones to freeze. So the reason why this kind of talks about to discipline is what you're doing in preparation for the battle, even when it doesn't seem to make sense.
Okay.
So, for example, the other thing he said, and it was another example from this World War II, is foxholes rarely get dug when the shells aren't flying. But as soon as the shells start flying, the soldiers will start digging.
Because they can't figure out what else to do.
Right, they can't figure out what else to do, and they see a need.
Okay.
Now I need a foxhole.
Okay.
The bombs are dropping.
So we don't prepare ahead of time.
We don't prepare ahead of time. When there's no bombs going, digging a foxhole is hard.
Yeah.
You've got a little shovel that folds out, and you have to
Right.
carry it in your backpack. And you've been marching for 24 hours, and all of a sudden they say stop, dig a foxhole. You think, well, there's nothing going on. I'm just going to sit here and rest.
Right.
The discipline says there might be something going on.
Okay.
So I need a foxhole. And one of the biggest differences during World War II were the German foxholes were deeper and more effective than American foxholes because German soldiers were trained and disciplined that the first thing they did was dig the foxhole.
Interesting. So if you are going to, well, it's like us talking about working first and playing later.
Exactly.
It's that same concept.
You always say, I work when I can,
yeah.
so that if I can't, I'm still covered.
And so I cover my bases because I know that I can work today.
Right.
I can take a break after I've talked about my game is to see if I can get to my office by noon. Mm-hmm. So, but I go into my office early so I can be out by noon, which doesn't always work, but that's the concept.
Today's a perfect example.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the whole idea is, all right, think about moving a battalion 15 miles.
Right.
You've got hundreds of people that you've got to march in up the woods, through the trees, over the hills, whatever it is.
Over the river and through the woods.
Well, I wasn't trying to do the song. But, they're going through all of these steps, and they're tired when they get there.
Of course. I mean,
and maybe the plan is only to stay one night. Human nature says rest.
Because I need rest more.
I need rest. Discipline says protection. Do what you need to protect yourself.
So isn't that interesting? That's a really interesting thought process because we have been so in a place of rest. Mm-hmm. I'm actually doing a Bible study that talks a lot about rest. So it's finding the balance of that, right?
Yeah. Well, think about it. You're the soldier and you're tired and you go, okay, I'm going to just lay down.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to take a little break.
And then 2.5 hours later, 3 hours later, you've gotten your nap. You're starting to feel, your senses are starting to heighten again. It's getting dark. Now all of a sudden you can't see what's out there behind the tree line. You know there's Germans out there or whatever the enemy is. And your mind starts going, okay, now I need to be on heightened sense because I'm wide open.
So I need to not be digging now and not paying attention.
Right.
Because I lost my window.
I lost my window.
Got it.
So you say, well, I'm going to try to get as much rest as I can because we're going to start marching again tomorrow. Well, how much sleep are you actually going to get?
So had you said, okay, when it gets dark, which is going to be in a couple of hours, I'm not going to be able to dig.
Right.
So even though I'm exhausted, I'm getting my rest.
If I dig the foxhole now, the rest I will get tonight will be better.
Got it. Yeah.
Because now I can be down, deep, protected, and feel confident.
So that's where the discipline comes in. It removes the emotion of being exhausted because when you're exhausted, emotion is high. Can we agree? Like that's definitely a place of high emotion.
So discipline is basically about the hard and the unglamorous.
Yeah, and inconvenient.
And the inconvenient. It's the stuff you don't want to do, but if you do it, you'll be prepared.
And be happier, healthier. Like what the preparation of eating well. We've talked about this often. When we are in a great zone, we prepare to eat well. And so therefore we grocery shop, I menu plan, we do all of those things. The last couple of weeks have been weird.
Yeah.
And so the preparation seems harder and in the middle, but we're paying for it by not taking the time to prepare.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
You have to do the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then that builds the muscles that make the uncomfortable comfortable.
Yeah.
It's about expanding your comfort zone. We always talk about that too, that when we find and we coach somebody and we get them to make their world just a little bit bigger, it hurts.
Oh, it's really, especially with the people around you and all of those kind of things. There's so many pieces to that.
But once it's enlarged that much, that new bigger circle is easy now.
Well, and it doesn't as easily go back.
Right.
It's a way more uncomfortable to go back.
And then it's uncomfortable to get a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But once you make that, you go through that unglamorous part and you force it. You go meet somebody new. You do a networking opportunity. You suck it up. Years ago when we were building one of our businesses, and I would start going to networking chamber meetings. I wanted to stand out.
Yeah.
And I'm an outgoing person, but that D in my personality offsets the I. I don't mind the fun and the enthusiasm, but as soon as all the attention is on me, I get very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It's like I always said, I dance for like 6 seconds because at 6 seconds, I think somebody's looking at me and I stop dancing.
Right.
And so that's a constant battle. But I knew our goal for our business was to get word out about us.
Right.
And I thought the best way to do that would be to do something crazy.
Right.
And so for months on end at every one of these, I went to a Chamber of Commerce meeting basically in costume.
Right.
in character of Dr.
Whatever
Marquis
we were
Ting.
doing.
We were doing a March Madness type thing, except for it wasn't March Madness because we didn't have rights to do that. But
Right.
but I would dress in a basketball uniform, and I would go to these formal professional meetings, forcing all the attention to be on me, not in a negative way, but in a sense that they had to go, okay, he's got some creativity. If I want marketing assistance, I need to go with somebody
this is
who I need to go to. And so over doing that over time, I then built the network large enough I didn't need to do it anymore.
Right. Right. And so you did it on the front end because we really do have to pay on the front end.
Yeah, you
And
always
Dave
have to pay on the
Ramsey
front.
even talks about that, right? Live like nobody else so you can live like nobody else.
Right.
It's not get to retirement. I don't want to be the person that has to work at Walmart as a greeter.
Exactly.
If that's what I choose to do,
Right.
but I don't want to have to.
Don't want to have to. Don't want to have to. And it's preparation for the opportunity. Because we all have something in front of us that we can't foresee.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So we protect ourselves. Kind of that foxhole analogy is talking about building protection. It's building
Right.
the house on the rock for something that could happen
That we don't know.
that we don't know.
Because there were probably a lot of times that nothing happened.
Nothing happened, which just reinforced the why should I bother?
Right.
You know, if I don't know for a fact we're getting attacked, why should I bother?
Right.
Along that lines, in the Vietnam era, trench foot was a huge problem.
Right.
And basically, the easiest way to fight trench foot is to dry your socks out.
So to lay outside, take your shoes off, be unprepared.
Yeah. And the number one problem that commanders had in Vietnam was constantly having to tell the soldiers to dry their socks out. The one thing that would keep them from being miserable, because you didn't get sent back for trench foot.
You just were very
You just-
uncomfortable.
It hurt. They also said never have both your boots off at the same time because that's dangerous. Because you always need to be ready to go. You don't want to be, as they said in this podcast, John McClane.
Yeah.
You know, you need to have your shoes. So it'd be like take one boot off, pull your sock off, or loosen the laces. There were lots of things that trade off socks, but do it one boot at a time. But it's the discipline to go through those steps and take care of your feet. It seems like that should be easy to do.
Yeah.
But think about how many times you go to bed without taking your makeup off.
Yeah.
You know you need to.
Yeah. It's a lot less now because as you get older, you start thinking,
It
oh,
starts to
Lord.
get real,
yeah.
real. But those are those daily habit behaviors. We were talking about this just with workouts. The last workout routines that we were doing were very muscle fatiguing.
Yeah.
And at our age, they required a larger amount of stretching,
Right.
which we didn't do.
And so we were always sore.
Always sore.
And not in a like, oh, I did too many squats way. Like yeah.
Sore like my joints hurt.
Like I should have stretched.
I should have stretched.
Not I did too many squats.
Exactly. And that's where the discipline comes in. It's there's nothing glamorous about stretching.
Well, and it's slow and methodical.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're our personalities, that is like, counter to everything
Right.
that I enjoy.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't get to measure it against the mile time I had last week. I
Right.
don't get to measure it against anything. So it's like, just go. Let's just go. And it's just not inside our personality. But the discipline says that's part of the workout process. That's part of what you do. You'll be healthier down the road. And our workout friends listening to this are going, oh my gosh, I can't believe they never stretch.
Yeah.
Because it's vital. It wasn't vital at 16.
Right. Yeah.
They
We're a
told
little
me it
old-
was.
We're a
but
little older now.
I never bought them. Yeah.
But you know, that's with my people that I coach, a lot of times I talk about tell me how it's going to feel when you get to that point.
Right.
When you finish that goal, when you do that thing that you say, whether it's eating well, working out, doing something in their business, how are you going to feel when you get there? And give me like words for that, not just oh, it's going to feel great. No, who are you going to tell? What's that going to feel like?
Paint the whole picture.
Because that's that when you're in the process, that when you're doing it when you're tired, you have to be able to look at that.
Which ties us back to focus, which is our first lesson. When you've got a clear focus,
It's easier, not simple.
Right.
I mean, it's not easy. It's simpler.
it's simpler to know what discipline's going to look like.
Right.
So we've got the protection side of discipline.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of businesses, if they were really good at that going into COVID, they're still alive.
Yeah.
The ones that weren't good about protection or didn't have the opportunity to, I mean, there are some businesses that were just too new and they're not going to make it out of COVID, and that's unfortunate.
Right.
But some of the larger businesses, restaurants especially, when they were disciplined in their financial situation and their resources, they're going to weather this.
Yeah.
They're not going to make big strides, but they're going to weather it.
Right.
Then the second thing you do is preparation for rain.
Yeah.
It's, are you ready for an opportunity
Yes.
if it comes along? If you're not disciplined when you don't think you need to be, then you're going to miss out on a chance.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a story in, I think it is in Draw the Circle, which is a devotion that Mark Batterson wrote. And he talked about farmers that all came together to pray for a drought. And only one farmer had rain boots on.
Yeah.
Prepare for rain.
Prepare for rain.
He wasn't coming to pray just in hopes that maybe someday it would rain. He came saying, I'm praying for rain, and by gosh, I'm going home ready. And I think that one analogy explains so much.
Right.
All right, do you have rain boots on?
Exactly. Can you continue to do the things that are in preparation over and over and over again without any reason to do them?
Yeah.
Besides the fact that odds are it has to happen someday.
Yeah. So how many days are you going to wear rain boots?
Yeah.
You're going to keep praying. Are you going to keep wearing rain boots?
One of the stories I've told over time is, when we were financially struggling, I would go to golf outings because I always find a way to get free. I'd be able to fill out a foursome and wouldn't have to pay for it, and I get to play golf. And at every golf outing, there's always a hole-in-one contest in where you can win a car or a lease on a car. And especially when they went from you actually get the car, but you get a 2-year lease. I would go to that hole. Now, I'm not a great golfer, but everybody believes that lightning's going to strike. This is going to be the time I'm going to hit the hole-in-one. But I would look at that lease, and I would go, wait a minute. That's a $10,000 a year lease for 2 years. That's a $20,000 prize. That's a 1099 number. That $20,000 is going to cost me $5,000 for a Ford Focus or whatever car it was. And I'm not sure that was important, except for the fact that we didn't have the $5,000.
Yeah.
We didn't have the taxes to pay on the free car.
Right.
Because of the lack of decisions, not entirely, but they were significant in the years leading up to that. So when you talk about, sometimes you're just disciplined because it's going to rain. And then the sun's going to come out. And the neighbors are going to get a harvest. Somebody's getting a harvest.
Right.
That's the way the world's designed. Are you disciplined to prepare yourself for the harvest?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, planting is such a great analogy always, because all the work that farmers put in to getting their tractors and their and their equipment ready, to buying the things that they need to plant, to the things they do in the winter to prepare. I mean, it just goes on and on for a harvest that comes in a month's time. All the preparation they do 11 months of the year. And for most farmers, it's like 4 to 6 weeks.
And it's significantly left to chance.
Every year.
Every year.
Our housekeeper's husband is a farmer, big farmer, got a lot of land. And we've talked to them a lot, or talked to her a lot about that. Like, good year, bad year. Like, when are you getting it out? What does that look like? And it's
a farmer only gets rich if they're the only one that has a good year.
Right.
All the rain and all the sun happened on their field.
Only on their field.
And only on their field. Because if it happens on everybody's field, there's a surplus. If it happens on nobody's field, nobody sells anything.
Right.
So it's really tough. And then the last reason why you have to have discipline is to protect you. Not protect you from outside stuff, to protect you from yourself.
Talk about that.
So do you remember the old Dunkin' Donuts commercial from 30 years ago? It's time to make the donuts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
To me, that's a great example of discipline. Every single day, it's time to make the donuts. But what happens if you really love making donuts and you end up making 3 times the amount of donuts than you can sell?
Right.
Every day. Sometimes discipline protects us from too much. We have to know exactly when to stop the good thing.
Okay.
Because if we go too far, then that can be just as damaging as not getting it at all.
Too much of anything is not a good thing.
Yeah. During a stretch when we were first coming out of our financial situation, I got addicted to paying things off.
Right.
Which meant a lot of times our cash flow wasn't strong because I prepaid debt that didn't need to be paid, and it created more stress than was necessary.
And then created more problems. Right.
Because I didn't have the cash flow, I missed a payment on another account.
Or if something happened.
Whatever, or an emergency happened, there was an emergency fund, which goes back to Dave Ramsey. It's why you do an emergency fund first, so that you've got that. But it's hard.
Right.
Sometimes to not do too much. We were talking today when we were running. We set a goal of 1.5 miles, but we felt pretty good near the end of the 1.5 miles. At the moment I crossed the 1.5 mile line, I could have gone 2 miles.
Right.
When I stopped and I realized that because of the lack of running we'd done recently or whatever, that I had some extra pain, uncomfort, stopping at 1.5 miles was a better decision physically. And then walking out and then picking up and running again or whatever the case may be. But so sometimes it's the discipline to go, okay, I'm only going to what my training plan says I'm going to go. No matter if I feel better than that, because I need to train tomorrow.
Right. And working out is a good example of that. But so many times, even with the people that I coach, they will work in spurts. Mm-hmm. One of my key people actually has figured this out for herself, but she was a pro at it. I mean, she would work full out and then she'd take 2 weeks off. Mm-hmm. Well, she lost all the momentum that she had gained. Had she planned herself better, right, which she now does, she could work more consistently, which actually works better than working full out for 2 weeks and not for 2 weeks.
Right.
Right. And so her work in the 2 weeks she was working was great, but not maintainable. Mm-hmm. And so, so there's got to be a harmony there between those two.
Yeah. If anybody's ever lifted and started a wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
Or pushed a big rock or done anything, they know how much effort has to be exerted to get started.
Right. And so as soon as you stop, whether the rock rolls back down the hill and so now you've got to get it back up, or the pumping the water, the beginning is the hardest part. And so if you stop and go, I'll take a break for a while and now restart, you'd actually be better to get less.
Right. Not push the boulder as fast to be able to push it.
Take
farther.
A couple breaks if you need to, mm-hmm, like a break versus a stop.
Yes, exactly. A slowdown. We talked about this when we were training for our half marathon. Sometimes you rest while you're running.
Right. And you figure out how to do that.
Yeah. You back off the speed so that you can catch your breath and get a little bit. And then you just pick up the speed a little bit when you're going downhill or whatever. You use that.
And I think that is way harder for some of us, but it's oftentimes not in everything.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's some of us that it could be working out or in our business being workaholics or all, mm-hmm, of whatever that is. And so, you really have to know yourself and know, testing your limits is good. Figuring out what they are is why you're testing them, mm-hmm, not just to test them.
Yeah. There are days when burning yourself out's exactly it because it's the championship.
Yeah.
There's absolutely a time to leave it all on the field.
Well, I'm getting ready to leave for a few days and I will be walking. There's a trail that I can walk, but doing a little bit more tomorrow before I leave isn't a bad idea.
Isn't a bad idea. Right.
Because I'm not going to be working out the same way for the next several days.
You've got the build-in. But if you were trying to continue that 5-day-a-week thing, being a little more strategic about how you're working out, what patterns you're doing, how hard you're pushing, making sure your body is tired but not worn down.
Yes, right.
And that's, to me, where discipline comes in. It's I could do more, but my long-term goals need me to not do more.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's in there. So that's basically discipline. It is understanding how to do the uncomfortable and the unpleasant and the importance of doing that.
Yeah.
And that it's for both protection, it's for the potential for growth, and it's for your own safety from yourself.
Yeah. Mary Kay, Ash used to say to eat dessert first.
Yes.
So discipline says eat dessert first. Just get it on the front end.
So thank you again. And our numbers are continuing to grow. We've had over 400 downloads in the last 30 days, which is a record for us.
I love it. And would you guys go check out First Miracle Winery? Would you just make a date day with your spouse, with your best friend, with your mom, with your sister, your dad? I mean, make a date and Go check them out.
And if you're not a Midwestern person, flights are really cheap right now. It's
Hey,
worth it
it'd
just
be
for that
worth it.
purpose.
It'd be worth it just for that purpose. So I hope you guys will check them out for sure. We really appreciate them sponsoring us.
And as always, you really help us out when you subscribe.
Yes. And would you rate us too?
Rate us.
That helps us a ton. Share us.
Tell all your friends.
Yes. We so appreciate y'all.
Find us on Facebook.
And Instagram at Love and Jesus Juice.
And online at loveandjesusjuice.com, where you can sign up for our
Email.
our email list.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
we've got some new products coming online, and you're going to want to be on the email list
Oh,
for that.
yeah. Okay. Check them out.
Have a great week.